Thanks for staying. This is the Marketplace. You're welcome back. Now to the very first story. Entrepreneurs should have something to smile about as government has initiated steps to grant them some tax reliefs in the 2017 budget. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta said the package is part of plans by government to empower local businesses compete favorably on the international front. He was speaking with Joy Business after the second edition of the Achimota Speaks series by the Old Achimotan Association under the theme Vision 2030, the role of industry, business and entrepreneurship.
We need to be bold and we need to think out of the box and be clear about how we are going to give relief to the Ghanaian entrepreneur for them to be able to use, their God-given talent. It's almost saying that because you earn very low income, you are not going to have a saving strategy. And so if we really believe, which we do, that in giving tax relief, the entrepreneur will work harder and therefore generate future taxes, then we go for that. Well, first of all, people are even disputing the fact of tax reliefs, for example, and we are going to do that. We are not going to touch the Heritage Fund to be able to support the free SHS education. That would also be done. We need to be also quite bold about looking at huge projects such as railways and co, and how we initiate the development of those things which will open up the country. And there are a number of other programs that we are thinking of for that.
Meanwhile, pro-NPP Pressure Group Alliance for Accountable Governance, AFAG, wants government to suspend its proposed tax cuts to ensure it has adequate funding for the free senior high school policy. The media briefing on Thursday, General Secretary Arnold Boateng said any money taken from the fund must only be considered a loan to be returned in 3 years.
Fund to fund the senior high school. That's number one. Number two, our support is not blanket. The Heritage Fund to be seen as a loan. Government should pay back any money. Government should set up a senior high school fund in a long term to fund the free senior high school. Any money taken from the Heritage Fund should be paid back within 3 years into the Heritage Fund. And any taxes should also be considered to fund a senior high school. So we support it, but we should not do away with the Heritage Fund. The fund is necessary for posterity. So money taken from the fund should be paid back at an interest. Because the money paid into the fund is meant to be invested for posterity. Once the government takes the money from the fund, that investment is stayed. So when the government is paying back, the government should pay back the money to the fund at an interest rate. So yes, we support the government using the Heritage Fund to fund senior high school. But government should take the money from the fund as a loan to be borrowed and paid back at an interest, not like we collapsing the Heritage Fund.
But in another development, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has debunked claims by Senior Minister Yaw Osafo-Maafo the Heritage Fund could be used to finance government's flagship free senior high school policy. There's been huge public outcry over former Finance Minister's position, with some civil society organizations calling on government to reconsider its position on the fund.
As far as I know, he alluded at looking at all the options for us to be able to finance education.
Is the Heritage Fund part of the options?
I'm not sure we are considering that. I think we have enough resources from our envelope to be able to do it without touching the Heritage Fund. I don't expect us to.
So you are saying that we will not touch the Heritage Fund as far as funding of the free senior high education is concerned?
We would not touch the Heritage Fund for the senior high school program that the president has right now.
Meanwhile, former Petroleum Minister Emmanuel Armah Kofi-Boah is also totally against going into the Petroleum Heritage Fund to finance government's free education policy.
A particular oil production, what we are talking about, is a maximum of 25 to 30 years. And we are saying that only 9% is what we are setting aside for future generation. It has been described that we are going to look at this, review it in 15 years. We are just in the 5th year. And all we have is $260 million. And it's not even close, 30% of what we want to achieve. And so the issue is this the only place we can look? Ladies and gentlemen, we remember not too long ago in the campaign, the MPP were telling the whole Ghana that they have the men, they have the brains, we are dumb, we don't know where the money is, they have the resources, they are just coming in and plug the holes and make sure that they bring the resources. They have it. Now is the time to basically make it happen. But we are saying that we support the free HS. In fact, it's not only that we support it, we've started the progressive implementation of it. And we've done it, and we've prioritized education. In the history of this country, if you looked at our budget in the last 2 budgets, how much was allocated to the budget was historic. And that should tell you that the NDC is committed to education. But we know what is hands-off, and we are saying that the Heritage Fund is hands-off. And that's all we are saying. Let's look at other areas and support this agenda the MPP have, but not the Heritage Fund, this 9%, PT 9%. So many of us wished it had been 30%, but we knew that we had constraints, and that's why it's 9%. And this is not the time to touch that money.
Emmanuel Ama Kofi-Boa, former petroleum minister. Away from that, the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, has cautioned against persistent speculations over the performance of the cedi. Some businesses and analysts continue to express worry about the recent trend of the cedi. It depreciated against the US dollar by 2.8% as at the end of January. But CEO of the AGI, Seth Chuma Kwabwa, tells Joy Business there's no cause for worry.
We shouldn't worry too much because it's actually a cycle. We need to quickly move in to make sure that it doesn't drag too long. And the key part of sometimes the cedi depreciation is the speculation. I don't think that at this stage we should speculate. There's no point in speculating that it's going to depreciate. So let me, even if I have cedis, let me go and mobilize some dollars and keep it so that if the cedi depreciates further, I don't lose. I don't think we should get into that panic mode at this stage because it's a normal cycle. But of course, what we expect to see is measures to make sure that it's contained within reasonable limits, and then we'll live with it.
A country director of German Development Corporation, GIZ, Alan Walsh, says the German government has renegotiated with the government of Ghana its support towards Ghana's economic development. This time, assistance will be on selected government projects as well as the private sector. The European Union and the UK earlier announced their decision to cut aid to the country. But in an interview with Joy Business at the Oba Sima Seal in Accra, Alan Walsh stated that the GIZ will be extending donor support to some power sectors, including agriculture and renewable energy.
We are not worried. We are supporting the new government of Ghana, which I can congratulate of the fantastic elections they had. And we are supporting in different sectors. Also with this launch, the cooperation with the private sector, which is a kind of engine of the economy, of the sustainable economy. So we are happy to cooperate with the government, with the new government, and with the private sector on behalf of the German government, which is giving us the budget for this cooperation. Well, we are working in different sectors, as I just said, in agriculture, in governance, in renewable energies. And these are the sectors which have been negotiated between the two governments, where we have to and are implementing.
Moving on, the prices of some petroleum products in the country are expected to increase marginally at the pumps in the coming days. This has been influenced by the bi-weekly review in prices by companies which import and market the products. But looking at the significant increase in prices since the beginning of this year, could this trigger an increase also in transport fares? George Rafi tells us more.
Checks with firms that import and market the product shows that diesel is expected to go up by just 1% per litre in the coming days. Horse petrol is expected to increase by a similar margin. However, LPG would increase by over 1% per kilo over the current price on the market. So, if the over 90 oil marketing companies decide to go with this projection by the importers, then a gallon of petrol can be sold to you at 18 Ghana cedis 45 pesos, whilst a gallon of diesel could be sold at 18 Ghana cedis 51 pesos. However, with the current deregulation policy, it is likely that there might not be any increase at all. But some industry watchers hold a different view. Now, this is because from January to date, price of petroleum products have gone up by over 15%. But with the current convention where operators are allowed to review prices when there is over 5% adjustment in the two reviews, then it's likely that transport operators might review their prices if they get the necessary blessings from their regulator.
Meanwhile, we are hearing some of the major transport stakeholders are engaging government over possible review of fares. This follows significant changes in prices of petroleum products since January. Now, George Riafe has been following this, and he has joined me in the studio to give us more update. George, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Riafe.
What is the status of this engagement?
Well, it looks like they have been meeting government over the past week over this particular issue, looking at what has happened with prices of petroleum products. And we understand that all other things being equal, by next week they should reach an agreement on the way forward, whether indeed all their concerns warrant an increase or there'll be maybe some marginal adjustment in transport fares. So what we are picking up is that possibly next week we'll get a final decision on these fares, on whether it's going. I'm looking at all these things that have taken place in the economy which affect the operations as transport operators.
And so what has exactly has government been saying about this?
Well, what we are picking up from government is that, yes, of course, there has been some engagement, and it looks like those final decisions will be captured in the 2017 budget. I don't know. It's quite a long time since those days when we used to hear the budget talking about transport fares, even price of sardines, and even milk and all those things. But what we are picking up is that some arrangement would be announced in the 2017 budget, which we understand that all other things being equal, that could be presented to Parliament on March 2. That is Thursday, March 2. So that budget would actually come out with the agreement that has been reached between the Transport Ministry and government and even the operators on the way forward, whether with respect to everything that has happened, prices of transport fares or transport fares should indeed go up.
Could we be reverting to the olden times where we have some subsidies being paid?
We don't know. I mean, getting the fine details have been difficult because it looks like government is still talking with these operators. But it could be that if it's established that transport fares must go up, then the obvious action could be subsidies or try to put in something to cushion the operations of these operators. Or if government might say that, okay, looking at all these factors, let's see about a 2% or 3% jump in transport fares, and that could happen. But the problem has always been with when the regulator tries to stop these operators from increasing when it matters. So we don't see a huge leap when nobody cannot do anything about it. So if you're going to see a 2%, a 3% hike, a 1% hike, fine. Some will say that the economy can absorb it. You don't see any serious impact on your cost of living or even on your operations and all those things.
Right. So what exactly are the oil marketing companies doing now before even the budget is read? Have they
every 2 weeks, as part of what we call or what we've come to understand as this deregulation policy, they're supposed to review their prices. It could go up or it could come down. Looking at all those inputs, like you're looking at the city, looking at the cost of bringing in the products and all those things. And from calculations that we've done, it was obviously clear that prices should be going up just under 1% and a little more. So between most of the products, you're seeing about 0.55, 0.88, and then 1.04. But it looks like because of this competition among the over 90 oil marketing companies, everybody's trying to look at what the other is trying to do before they take that decision of whether we should review the prices at the pumps or we should hold on to it. So
it's going to the benchmark anyway. Is it to the benchmark?
It used to be, because they are a major player in this industry. So before you review your price, you want to look at what GOIL is doing before you take that decision. So as long as God might delay in doing that, others might also want to hold on before they act.
That's not too good for the deregulation anyway.
Well, let's see what happens.
All right, thank you very much for that insight.
Thank you so much, Wiafe.
And that was George Wiafe bringing us up to speed with the engagement between transport operators and government as to review of lorry fares shortly in the coming days. Away from that, misconceptions and stereotypes surrounding the beauty industry are as old as the industry itself. The stereotypes, according to the CEO of Hair Center, Gwen Jima Ado, have been a hindrance to women in the industry for decades. She, however, urged other women in the industry to do all they can to continue dispelling these misconceptions by striving for excellence irrespective of their educational background.
People have come to understand that, you know, times have changed. You know, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a doctor. You can be highly educated and choose whatever fields that you want. I mean, use me for an example. I have my executive MBA. I could be in any corporate institution and add value to them, but I choose to be in the hair industry, in the beauty industry, and there are so many people like me and more, you know, who are, you know, churning out innovative stuff because of the level of education that they have. And by the way, for those also that don't have, you know, such high levels of education, you know, it really doesn't matter. There are people that are highly educated, you know, been to the Harvards and all the Ivy League schools that you can think of, but lack common wisdom. You need to be able to apply both, you know, have a fair balance to be able to do well in business.
All right, so you catch the full version of this interview on the Executive Lounge, which airs on Saturday at 5 p.m. on the Joy News channel. Now, Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission, Tony Oben, is prevailing on mining communities to institute measures that would enable them maximize the benefits of the Mineral Revenues Development Fund. In a repeat of the business agenda, the General Mine Workers Union also gives a reaction.
You're welcome to the business agenda, and today we're taking you to the mining sector, and that's where the Chief Executive of the Minerals Commission, Dr. Tony Oben, is asking leaders of mining communities to strategize so that they can take full advantage of the Mineral Resources Development Fund. According to him, they can even use their share of the money to source for loans from banks before the monies are even disbursed.
So if you have that bulk, and then the fund, because it is a fund, you can invest and make more funds. You can also use that as a guarantee for, in fact, the management of it must even look at that. Use that as a guarantee for advance monies to access development. For instance, if a road needs to be tarred and the place is guaranteed, this is my idea though, and the place is guaranteed for revenue at a point in time, you can go for the road, do the road in expectation of that coming. So these are some of the ideas that will be thrown in once the whole infrastructure around the the Minerals Development Fund is implemented.
So that was the Chief Executive of the Minerals Commission, Dr. Tony Oben. And for a reaction, I've got the General Secretary of the Ghana Mine Workers Union, Prince William Ankra, to help us understand their position about this call. Mr. Ankra, thank you very much for the opportunity. You heard what Dr. Tony Oben is saying about the fund, what the leaders have to do to enable them to take full advantage of it. Do you support this, or you think it cannot be achieved?
However laudable it is, it's a question of the dynamics, to the extent that, you know, going for loans to really use the Mineral Resources Fund to characterize it as an issue because interest rates in Ghana. If we're going to get a dollar borrowing, then that makes sense. But I'm afraid that however laudable it is, if you're not careful, before even you hit the main fund, you incur some debts. So my take will be that, look, to what extent rather would the business advance some monies, or government advance some monies, and use that to really offset it? You know, in that whatever you want to undertake in that mining community whatsoever, you don't end up incur additional interest rates payout.
So for you, they can use the money or their share as a guarantee,
Sure.
but then you are worried about the interest in it.
Obviously, that's a key issue here, you know, and how do we deal with that? Yeah, because, I mean, these communities, to a large extent, have lagged behind environmental issues because in the past, the money comes to state coffers, and it goes into the main fund, and they do whatever they want to do with it. So if there's a need to do what we intend doing now, then let me be sure that we give it a very deeper conversation and devise a more holistic approach that will be beneficial to the communities. So the idea can be good, but I'm not sure that, you know, we will really be able to delve into the implication in terms of the financial scenarios. I'm sure that given the nature of the deficit that we've encountered all this while, it's also fair that a fund of this nature serves the right purpose.
So you heard the General Secretary of the Ghana Mine Workers Union, Prince William Ankra. As you heard him, he does agree it can't be done, but he's worried about the interest it may attract. So do join us again next week for another edition of the Business Agenda. It is powered by Joy Business.
Advertisers and practitioners should now be able to easily track and ascertain the value of their billboards and outdoor advertising materials along the highways. This is possible through the latest tracking software introduced by international marketing auditing firm Engage International. The application, called O-Metrics, seeks to address the many marketing challenges faced by businesses. Managing Director of Engage International, Jonathan Pigeon, explains operations of the software to Joy Business.
You can attribute value to a site, i.e. what it's costing you per thousand to buy that audience and making sure you're meeting the right audience in the right way. It's to allow us to, number one, become measurable and accountable against the other mediums, as well as accountable for ourselves and our client money spend. As per any metric, it takes a while for it to embed in a territory. We need to have local knowledge, local advice, local partners that allow us to build the data sets, and then to make data-driven decisions as opposed to emotive decisions. Right now, we drive down a road and we think, oh, that's a nice billboard, let me buy it. But at the end of the day, what has it done for us? Has it delivered an audience, yes or no? And that's the question about metrics.
Can we say Accra is becoming increasingly choking with these billboards all over? Because when you look at your presentation, some of the billboards are just over the place.
Yes, and we've seen this in various African centers.
The Ghana Association of Tomato Importers is on a collusion course with non-member importers who they accuse of importing low-quality products. Members say some Ghanaian and Burkinabe distributors are flooding the local market with inferior products at the expense of producers. Nana Jima reports.
There are reports of confrontation between members of the Ghana Association of Tomato Importers and independent importers. The association accuses independent importers of bringing in cheap, low-quality tomatoes. Until the independent importers joined the trade, the association regulated distribution of the highly perishable vegetable. President of the association, Eric Osei-Kufuor, says government's intervention will be crucial in addressing the challenge.
You know, a buyer always wants cheaper thing to buy, but the quality also counts. You know, when you eat bad tomato, at the end of the day, it affects your health. And the rejected boxes that the Burkinabes have rejected it is the boxes that they are using to import the tomato into the country. And then they normally don't buy the quality tomato that our association is buying from the Burkina.
Independent importers dismiss claims their products are of low quality. Salamatu Al-Hassan is one of them.
We pay our taxes and fulfill all financial obligations to the country. We engage in legal business. We are not corrupt, as they say.
Meanwhile, some traders suggest the independent importers have become their more preferred option. They cite packaging convenience and lower prices as their reasons.
We make losses when we buy from the market in boxes, but here you can manage and make profits.
Not all of us have huge capitals to buy for the market. The prices of these people are more.
On a rather unfortunate note, we conclude this afternoon's package of the marketplace. Many thanks for your company, and let's meet again next week. Have a good week.